They're dancing in the streets, folks, in a lot of places. Gainesville, Florida, Philadelphia, and all over Eagles fans all over the country. What a weekend, man. Maybe Taylor Swift will go back to being a singer or whatever she does. Maybe we won't see Travis Kelce in so many commercials, but we're going to talk about all that.
I saw him on the side of a cereal box.
Yeah.
It freaked me out.
Yeah, and he didn't have his first catch until late in the third quarter, so it was pretty wild. But look, we got Coach Ellis Johnson joining us. We're going to talk what happened in that Super Bowl last night. A lot of football stuff going on. Spring practice is about to crank up. We got basketball in full gear. Franz will join us second half of the show to talk about that. Do us a favor. Take a picture of that QR code with your phone. Be a subscriber and share it with as many people as you know in the free world and the not so free world. But we do it about 260 times a year. We put out a lot of content. We are talking SEC football, basketball, baseball. We do it Monday through Friday, man, 8 a.m. Central. So check in with us. And without any hesitation, Brenden, that game for the Gators, we did a pop-up show Saturday. That was a lot of fun. And you go on the road and one team feels like everything in the world is going their way, and the other team comes in and knocks them off. But that's sports. That's why we love these games so much, isn't it?
Absolutely. I felt like we were talking before the show. Coach Ellis Johnson joins us, and Coach said, "Boy, you got to give hats off to that offensive and defensive line. The defensive line last night was fierce, right, Coach?"
Yeah, that was the story of the game. Jalen did some great things, but a lot of it was at a time in the game where Kansas City's in desperation. Mm-hmm. And but you go back through the whole game, Mahomes was under pressure the entire game. They had zero running game. I don't think they tried to run it but 11 times. And then they got the turnovers off of them. And all of those turnovers were a result of pass pressure. There were some good picks. Those couple of picks out there were really good interceptions, but those things were thrown. Hell, one of them, Mahomes gets hit in the hip. It throws the ball 3 yards off, and everybody's blaming him. He got hit in the hip while he's trying to throw a pass. So I don't know. It didn't shock me. You get those Super Bowls, they can go any way, every way. Could be a great game, could be a blowout, and with all the crap that goes on pre and during and after. Sometimes I wonder how they ever have a good game.
Well, you know what it reminded me of? The 1992 Alabama-Miami National Championship game. Everybody was picking Gino Torretta and Miami to beat y'all. And you and Brother Oliver and that staff put together a Mona Lisa masterpiece defensive game plan with George Teague and Sam Shade, Antonio Lang. That was what that happened. Last night was so dominant. I was at a Super Bowl party watching it with a lot of people. And I kept saying, I want the Eagles. I took the Eagles to cover. I wanted them to win, but it was hard to think the way things have been going for so long for Kansas City. Not that they're not good, but man, the defensive front, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, there's a huge number of SEC players on that team. The Eagles, but that's 2 Super Bowls the last 7 years, and they lost one, 2 years ago. So they've got to be one of the best franchises in the league.
Yeah, I think they kind of don't get enough attention because of what Kansas City and Patriots have done over the last 2 decades.
Yeah.
You don't really think about some of those other teams having any kind of dynasties or whatever. And I wouldn't call them a dynasty, but you're exactly right. Well-run organization. They're in the picture a lot. And, boy, they're strong right now. It's the first time I've kind of seen Mahomes get run down by a defensive lineman.
Yeah.
First time I've seen Travis Kelce basically just neutered. He wasn't a factor.
Yeah.
It's just that maybe it's been coming.
Yeah.
They're not nearly as good a Kansas City team as they were the last 3 or 4 years.
No. And, Brenden, weren't you saying Saturday night on the pop-up show when I was on with you and your dad, when you lived in Denver growing up, didn't Elway lose 2 or 3 Super Bowls before he got those back to – 4.
Yeah. He kept losing to the Bills. So they lost 4. Giants, San Francisco. Oh gosh, I got to think.
The Bills lost 4 in a row. I remember that. That was horrible.
No, they lost 3. I think Broncos took that spot when they're losing 4, not in a row, I believe. But they had that going on because Elway and Jim Kelly were drafted in the same class.
Yeah. Coach, I mean, wow. I like the way you broke it down watching the game. And then how much of what you see in the NFL comes from college, or how much of what you saw last night will trickle back down to the college level, the way we play defense?
It's hard to say. It was the first time I've seen a defensive coordinator use as much games and stunts in the front four. The commentators finally talked about it too. They didn't blitz much. That pressure on Mahomes was coming from 4 guys, and he was using a lot of twists and stunts, and it wasn't all pass twists. 3 yards upfield. There was a lot of games going on in there, and it worked. It's disrupted the run game, and they were able to play run with only 5 and 6 in the box, and then they were getting pressure on him with 4 people, and so they've done it to a lot of people this year. But Fangio's a really good coach. And there'll be people try to study it, get some things off of it. I always loved, even when I wasn't a big pro football fan, I loved to get their films and get. It used to be hard to get your hands on them. You'd have to call somebody you knew on the team, and they'd sneak a few out to you. But you study that, and you do get a lot of good football from it. I think it's getting better to watch lately, but for a long time there, the pro game was so, I don't know, just so stereotyped and generic across the board. But you could find some good stuff on there, scheme-wise and things like that. And now it's easy to get it because they all have it on digital, and they're required to swap every game with every team in the league. So you might call Philadelphia, and they said, no, we can't give that up. They'll just call Kansas City. They'll give you Philadelphia stuff.
Well, it's sort of like Discovery in the legal system. You've got to share documents and stuff like that. So this is interesting. There had been 18 or 19 quarterbacks who had gone to the Super Bowl but they never lost and never went back. Jalen Hurts broke a long streak. What he did. He's only 27 years old out of Channelview, Texas. And then you look at Patrick Mahomes, he's only 29. These guys are going to be around a long time. Coach, talking football right now, and we want to talk about the path back for the SEC to supremacy in all the land. The last couple of years, it's been the stars have aligned for Michigan and Ohio State. The SEC schools are not going to stop, spending money on, NIL, whatever. But do you see, I don't see it, but do you see any kind of a seismic shift? Because recruiting, 10 of the top 16 classes in the country were in the SEC, but a lot of the national pundits, I guess they just want to say the SEC's down, don't they?
Well, I wouldn't say it's seismic, but I think it's shifting. And I'll put on my tinfoil hat. I don't think this is an accident. I think it's an old Rose Bowl coalition of teams kind of coming together and realizing that we got to take this thing back. We used to run it back in the 60s and 70s.
Yep.
And we got one way of getting it back because we lost TV. Everybody's got TV now. And we lost some of the better viewing hours. Kids on the West Coast love SEC football because it comes on at a time out there, time-wise, where it's the best games on TV during the prime time.
Yeah.
And that's why I think some of the recruiting out there on the West Coast became so much better. But back to the point, there's one way for them to take it back. They're more wealthy. And a couple of other places like Texas A&M, they can hang with them. But as much money as Alabama and Florida and Georgia and some of them have, they don't have Michigan money, and they don't have Big Ten money, and they don't have Oregon money, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And Texas A&M do. So if they don't get some guardrails on this NIL portal thing, you might have the best high school recruiting class every year, but you're going to lose 5 or 6 of them because they're going to just come in there and buy them. And it really is that bad right now, and it's got to get some sort of parity and some kind of rules in place. I think Sankey may have gotten blindsided. he's on board with them. They're trying to create these two superpower conferences, but if you're the lesser of the two, you still ain't in very good shape. Now, it put ACC and Big 12 in a bad situation. But in trying to be a powerhouse like them, he's gotten into a two-horse race. And I hate to say it, but you're not going to beat some of those guys in a two-horse race when it comes to paying players.
Yeah, and something I'm concerned about, like Larry Ellison, the Oracle CEO, net worth a little over $200 billion. They're moving their headquarters to Nashville. Okay. I don't know. I'm sure he loves that because of no state income tax in Tennessee. That's what I'm concerned about is the money, the Big Ten money that they have. If you just look at the size of endowments, that's a pretty good indicator, a barometer. Like the 30-year, bond is a bellwether of what interest rates are going to do. My concern is you could have a handful of the SEC schools be really good at it. Texas A&M and Texas will throw money at it forever. But the high school classes, you're right. You're going to get, they could be great. You have some guys that show up, look really good as freshmen. A Big Ten school like Ohio State, they take Caleb Downs. They took Quinshon Judkins from Ole Miss. It is flipping back to the the 60s, back when Michigan State and Notre Dame tied 10 apiece, and they gave the national championship to them and screwed Alabama out of a third straight ring. That's where I see this going if we don't get a handle on it.
Yep.
Brilliant observation on your part. I'm telling you, you were a trial lawyer in your previous.
Well, I'm old enough. No, I was old enough to watch it go on.
Yeah,
The rest of you young guys weren't alive back then.
But I do remember we were subjected to how great the 10-year war was between Bo Schembechler and Woody Hayes. That was football, and you're going to like it, and that's how it was. And, that's why the SEC is so close as a conference, is because we are the most common, united group of people in the country. And we take a lot of pride. And I remember asking before the Notre Dame Georgia game down in Louisiana, a lot of my LSU people, a friend of mine said, I bet you most of those LSU people down there that are Catholic, and most of them are, will pull for Notre Dame over Georgia instead of, like you say, SEC. I said, and finally it got down to Jimmy Ott down in Baton Rouge said, in New Orleans, yeah, Baton Rouge, no. I don't know about the rest of the state, but the SEC, what do you think Greg Sankey's going to be asked about, especially at the spring meetings in Destin, is like, hey, where are we going with this? You just said it. You don't want to be the second, even if you're two superpowers and you're second place. That's not good.
Yeah, I don't know what he says. And I mean, he always is the smartest guy in the room. Just ask him.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, I'm not blaming him for it all. It's some of it's seismic shifts going on that you can't control some of it.
Yeah.
But as long as King Dollar's running everything, and right now they're running conference alignments, they're running TV contracts, they're running everything. And so nothing wrong with money, but when you're chasing a dollar and the sole purpose is to chase a dollar, you can screw up a lot of stuff on the way. And I think we've lost a lot of college football in the last 4 or 5 years, not to mention the last 10. Conferences don't mean as much as they used to. The rivalries don't mean as much as they used to. And I'm afraid they're going to kind of hurt fannies in the stands, and you're going to end up, just appealing to a TV-only audience if they don't watch it, because they're going to be games in those stadiums now. And everybody, Georgia and Auburn, they could be a bad football team in those two, and they still, will they play each other? They're going to put 85, 95 in the stadium.
Yeah.
You can get it to where people won't do that. They're not going to come. And you can kill those rivalries by not playing them every 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. I agree with you. And look what the crowds are for USFL or any of these, spring leagues. We better watch out, because you keep beating people on the head about paying for this and paying for that. And they're looking at the product and going, really, why? Because I've got a business and my employees have like 3-year or 5-year contracts if we pay them up front to come here. And if they leave, they're legally bound. They have to pay us or we're going to be in court, and it's not going to end well for them. That's a big concern. And I don't know where
I think
TV's going.
I said the other day, and I'm repeating myself, but there is a tremendous difference in a college football fan and a pro football fan.
Oh, yeah.
And now pro football fans have their little pride in their little cities and everything, but a vast number of professional football sports fans just like the sport. And they'll go, they just like the game. College football fans like their college. And they just, they're very territorial, and that's where rivalries come from. That's where conferences come from. That's where everything, comes from parity. You group a conference and everybody agrees some rules so we can try to make the playing field level. You have better football games, yada, yada. Finally, the NCAA got a uniform entrance standard, about 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Before that, different conferences had different entrance exams and all this good stuff. I just think it's something that can get away from you quicker than people think it can. And the answer is not going to always be money. It just can't be. You're going to hurt the college game. It may not hurt the pro game. When I was at Clemson, it was the first year that the Panthers played football, and they played in our stadium because they didn't have their stadium ready yet.
That's right. Yeah.
And we'd be grading film and meeting on Sundays after we played a game. And you'd look out there, and those pro football fans would be rolling in there, and you could tell immediately they weren't our fans.
No,
They're parking all up in the yards. They're parking in the damn office. They're parking. They come in. They don't have anything on that you'd identify what team they're pulling for. They just going to a football game.
Well, like Coach, I grew up as an NFL fan, as a Bronco fan, and then also having that, the dichotomy of knowing Gators and SEC sports and all that. I always tell that it wasn't the same thing, and you can tell immediately when you go to a game or a tailgate or a party or whatever, the difference right away. I did want to, you guys indulge me just 1 second. My daughter Stella today went on her first field trip. She's watching on the bus with all of her friends right now. They're going to a big 5-day field trip, and I'm such a dad. It's my whole world. And so she's listening with her friends right now. So we want to say, Stella, you have a safe trip, honey. I love you so much, and enjoy your time in the undisclosed location, because I ain't going to tell you. And but it's somewhere in the Tennessee mountains, and she's going on her first big trip. So anyway, thanks for indulging me. I love you, Stella girl. Have a great trip. Daddy boy loves you. I'll see you when you get home on Valentine's Day. You're going to be my Valentine. Okay, I'm done. Thank you very much.
Hey, always, man. I mean, that is awesome for Stella. And look, man, field trips, road trips. Think about.
I got a little misty. I got to say, single dad standing there outside the day. I was like, okay, I gotta go. It's just something in my eye. I gotta go.
Hey,
something in my eye.
Well, that's because you're a great dad. I mean, there's nothing more fun than having kids.
He's a great kid. I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I'll tell you.
Yeah, we all are. I agree with that. And I'm telling you, Brenden, I like what you said, Brenden, about the NFL fans. The same with you, Coach Johnson, because I remember when the Houston Oilers were on the way to Nashville, they temporarily had to play in Memphis before they went to Nashville. And man, there's nothing like when the Raiders come to town. I mean,
oh my God!
I've been to a Kiss concert. I've been to an AC/DC concert. But you've never seen anything like the Raiders fans. Wow! But
well, I mean, like I'm a pretty classy SEC guy, but when I was a Broncos fan, if I was in Mile High and there were Raiders fans in front of me, I was the worst version of myself. I'll tell you that. It was just the way it was, though.
Yeah, it's totally different. And I love this discussion, Coach, because I had a girl tell me one time, if money can solve it, it's not really a problem. And we see money thrown at so-called problems all the time. Look at Doge, look at anything, and that's not what you got to have follow through. I like to tell people that I'm helping. I can't care more than you care. Okay. So where are we gonna figure this out? I see the future is the fans are going to start raising more hell than they ever have. It could be boycotts. It could be walking out at halftime to make a statement. Okay. That's where we're going because we love our schools. I've gotten to know a lot about Florida. Is this we built this network of the Gator fans? I was talking to an Auburn friend yesterday, and he said, "Man, you know, it just seems Auburn, Florida is a great rivalry. It was one of Auburn's oldest for a long time." And I was pretty mad. I mean, I hate losing as a fan, but when I was on the pop-up show Saturday night with Buddy and Brendan and reading what all the Gators fans, it kind of takes the pain away. You're going, well, it's an SEC battle. You know, Auburn will be back. You know, Florida will be back. But we are close-knit. You use the term family. You hear it a lot. But it's because we know each other. My wife's a Tennessee fan. Mallory, the oldest one, she's Alabama. Everybody else in my family's Auburn. That's what makes a conference because we know each other, Coach.
Yep. I'll tell you another thing. It's affecting other sports. And I think now this could be a 1 year abnormally, I guess is the word. But you look now at how many of the teams in the top 25 in basketball or Big Ten and SEC. The ACC's got one team in the top 25 guys. The ACC, I think.
Yeah.
It's one team.
Yeah.
I mean, that probably shifts all the time, though, and it may not be. But last time I looked at it, Duke was the only one in there.
And they got beat Saturday by Clemson.
Yeah. And Clemson got a
there's a lot
team,
of
but I'm telling you,
a lot of stories about that,
money.
Coach. Yeah, that's what I'm going to say. It's a lot of stories about that right now, Coach, which exactly what you're saying, which is, well, I think you're saying, but, you know, NIL, all this money, it's a lot easier to move a basketball team and to get, you know, than it is to move a football team. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. And money and the teams like the Big Ten, the SEC, they're dwarfing the ACC and the Big 12 in money and in revenue. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that means they got all the money and they don't have any endowments and things of that nature, but I think they've got them on their heels right now, and they're just paying these players more.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, where 75% of the televisions in America are in the geographical footprint that makes up the Big Ten. That's a big thing. So, you know, in the SEC, it's a contiguous footprint. Let me look at the map over my shoulder. It's all connected. All these states are connected. And these fan bases have so much in common. They travel to each other's, you know, campuses in huge numbers. And I don't think the Big Ten, Oregon playing at Penn State, how many Oregon fans are going to make that trip, or Penn State to Oregon? That what a conference is common things that we have together. When we go to work Monday morning after a football weekend or basketball, whatever, and we're ribbing each other. You should have seen the trading floor when I worked at Duncan Williams for 12 years. Man, you know, Duncan, huge Alabama fan, on the board of the School of Commerce down there. We got South Carolina guys. The top trader, the number one trader, Adam Tooley, is a Florida Gator at the firm. You know, and I look back, the Georgia fans, good God, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Tennessee, Auburn, LSU, Memphis, Arkansas, Mississippi State, and we had fun because we did pull for the conference. And I wonder if anybody's asking that to Commissioner Sankey and saying, hey, you know, be careful about giving away too much to get more money. Because, you know, there are a lot of people that have a lot of money. Maybe they're born into wealth. They know the cost of everything, but the value of nothing.
Yeah.
Hard work. I mean, most people, 95% of wealth in America is first generation. And it's the old motto, the first generation employs, the second enjoys, and the third destroys, unless you make your kids work. What we better watch out for, because again, I say this a lot as a financial advisor for 34 years, we've never had a family ever hand out money to 18, 19, and 20-year-olds. Not once, not never, ever. They don't even consider it. It's all age-banded trust and incentive-based trust. So if it's good enough for people that have money, why are we suddenly letting these kids in college? Why do we think that an 18-year-old needs a Lamborghini? No. I mean, this is the silliness of this whole thing. I mean, and Coach, you know as well as I do, you've got 3 great kids, and they work their asses off. I'm sure growing up with you, you instilled that in them. I bet you worked when you were 14 years old. I mean, I just can tell.
My kids did not work enough because I was never home. I
Well,
was always coaching.
but coaching is tough as hell, though. Yeah, that's the thing.
It is. But when if they'd been born in my early coaching years, they'd understand. When I lived in a 2-bedroom apartment, they were born. I had a 5-6 bedroom house in a nice neighborhood. They didn't know any better. Now all the 2 boys now want to go into coaching, and I had to sit down and try to tell them that this is what you need to understand.
Yeah.
You've only seen one side of it.
Yeah.
And so now one of them's a grad assistant up at Murray State now.
Yeah.
His first game, they got on a bus, drove over to Missouri, got beat 52-0, and drove back and got home at 4:30 in the morning. And I was looking at my phone. I got his location. He gets in his dorm room at about 6 a.m. And I'm just laughing. One reason I'm glad I wasn't on the bus. Another reason I'm thinking now he knows what coaching's all about.
Yep. Well, John Brady, basketball coach, took LSU to the Final Four from Macomb, Mississippi. I asked him one time last year, I said, Coach, what were your early earnings like as a coach? He said, Rob, I'm my first 3 years, he goes, I made $15,000 a year. You know, and that's the thing people need to think about. It's hard. I mean, there's some people that were born on home plate and think they hit a grand slam.
Yeah.
Most people that I've encountered that have money, it is when you hear their story, you're going, I need to get a writer here. We need to write a book about this. When you hear the true story of how FedEx, when Fred Smith was trying to make payroll, when they first started that company, they were, and I know this this is not a made up story. They were a little over maybe 100,000 short. Back in the mid 70s, that was a lot of money. He flew out and they went to Las Vegas, played roulette, and they won. What if they had not won in roulette? Because I know there's 40,000 FedEx employees just here in Memphis, and about 500,000 or 600,000 worldwide. The stories of how money is made. What did Mark Twain say? If you like the law or you like sausage, never watch it, either one of them when they're being made. And that's coaching. I remember you telling me about your son working for Jody Wright at Murray State. Yeah, that's right. Let me say something real quick. We're going to get right back about Landers Ford, Memphis. They are open Monday through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Folks, $500 off for SEC Sidelines audience members. They're the number 1 Ford dealership in the Mid-South for a lot of reasons. But look at the savings opportunities that they have for trucks, cars, SUVs. Look at those on the Expeditions, President's Day event, the Bronco Badlands. You're taking a lot of money off these Edge models, $15,000 total off MSRP. Check out their Ford Blue Advantages on certified vehicles, the Blue Advantage. I love my F-150, 4-wheel drive. That makes it my truck. I love it. Brad Bellamy and the team out there are there to do a couple of things. Number one, get you in a vehicle that fits you, your price range and all that. And number two, make it the best customer experience that you'll ever have. They will deliver anywhere, open every day of the week except Sunday. Check them out on the web at landersfordmemphis.com. Coach and Brenden, great insight. Like Brenden growing up, going to a ton of Broncos games. And Coach, you growing up in coaching and knowing what coaching's like. Now you've got one son and another one that does want to get into coaching. And
Yeah,
I like the fact
he thinks he does.
you know, I was telling someone, I said, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a cop or a fireman or a garbage man. Now you're like, I want to be a college football coach and go to a place and get bought out. I mean, but it is so hard to get there, Coach. Your 2 sons, what they're trying to do, they're going to look back, in 10 years and say, wow, you were right. So I think that's a cool part. Franz Beard joins us, the Iron Duke from Alachua County, Florida, down there where it never snows, but it gets cold. Franz, I I missed you on the first part of the pop-up show Saturday night, but I was texting you during the game. I took Florida to cover. I was concerned about the size. You had got me all those big, tall guys, on the team there with Florida. But big win for the Gators. They'll both these teams will be in the hunt for everything. But man, they're not many teams that have size anymore like the Gators. That was a big one.
Well, imagine next year when Micah Hanlockton, who's 7'1", is back, and they pull the red shirt off, 7'9" Oliver Ryu, who you look at Alex Condon, who's 7 feet tall, standing next to him, and he looks like a midget.
Yeah.
It's amazing. But here's the thing about it, which is surprising. The kid's got skills. He's going to be a real basketball player, not just somebody tall. One of my business partners has a son who played, was on one of the JV teams at Montverde. They went over to IMG last year, and he was astonished to see this kid take a pass over his head like this, reach over his head and dunk without ever leaving the floor or ever turning to look at the basket. He just reached behind because at 7'9", there are certain privileges you have that are not available to those of us who are, shall we say, are vertically challenged.
Yeah. I mean, it's Franz. Guys, I one time was going through LaGuardia Airport, trying to catch a flight from back to Birmingham, and I saw Andre the Giant, the wrestler, and he was trying to walk through the security thing at the airport, and he got stuck, and it was going. The alarms were going woo woo woo, and he was like, "Rrr." I've never laughed so hard, but I missed my flight because of that, and I had to spend the night up there for an extra night.
Andre could take a 16-ounce beer can in his hand, put his fingers around it and his thumb over the top, and you couldn't see the can.
Yeah, well, you should have. He was on Letterman one time, and Letterman said, Andre, you know how Letterman would always do? He goes, I know you like to drink beer, don't you? He goes, yeah. He goes, what's the most beer you've ever drank in one night? He goes, 72. 72 cans of beer in one night. All right, let's get back.
7'6" and 465 pounds.
God, a large man. I'm sure he that's you could not play defensive tackle. Coach, I got to ask you something. Franz, and I want to get into a big football discussion here right now because, I mean, we got basketball, but I got two of the smartest football people on here. Coach, Franz covers the Gators, but he knows the SEC. What do you think is happening right now in high schools in the Southeast with the players? Are they all getting to the point where every one of them is focusing on getting an NIL deal versus focusing on being a better player? Is this trickling down to that point?
Oh, yeah, no question.
Okay.
Most of the high school coaches I've spoken to that I know around South Carolina,
damn,
and especially some of them in these big schools that are constantly turning out pretty good players.
Yeah.
And they said their traffic with college recruiters is down almost 60%. And I said, what are they doing? I said, they holding their money for transfers. They said, oh, absolutely. He said, when they do come in, they tell us, we can't offer him right now. We're going to see what we're going to get in the portal, and we're not going to give any scholarships to high school players until after signing date. And this is not only the top level, this is 1AA guys and all that. So, yeah, it's hard into the high school. It's affecting the recruiting on that level. And kids that age, they're starting to realize if they're the talented kids getting all the attention, they want to be a better player, don't get me wrong, but they want that NIL money on the way. And that's why they go to school sometime, and when they prove they're good enough, somebody comes in, offers some more money, boom, they're gone. They're not a Gator or Bear Bryant, child or anything. They want to go somewhere that's got all the money and play, obviously, too.
Wow. Franz, hearing something like that, because he's talking to these coaches, high school recruiting, they're seeing 60% less of college coaches than they used to.
Well,
Wow.
I'm not surprised by that at all, because here's the thing we've done is we have bastardized the entire system, and we've put 18-year-old kids, 17 and 18-year-old kids in charge. Now, one of the great analogies I ever heard was okay, you've got two armies lining up across from each other, both of them with nuclear weapons, and you put you go out to a local high school and you find some 18-year-old and say, okay, you get to decide if we use the nuclear weapons or not. This is, I know how absurd that sounds, but would you put an 18-year-old in charge of the nuclear code? No. But we've put 18-year-olds in charge of college football, and that just doesn't cut it. And here's where the problem starts, though. The problem doesn't start with the 18-year-olds. The problem starts with paying coaches $13 million and expecting kids to come there and play, knowing their coach is driving a Mercedes, knowing their coach has got all these perks coming, his beach house and all this other stuff. And they're going around there. Fortunately, Nike gives them a bunch of shorts and T-shirts, but they're in shorts and T-shirts and they're driving, they may be driving an 8-year-old Toyota Corolla. Okay. There's kids put two and two together and say, I want some of that. And this is where we've gotten it.
Well, yeah, but growing up, there were people when I was 23, 24, first starting working out of college. That's just you accepted that. I mean, the guy that runs the company has the beach house or drives the nice car. That what we have, Coach, is a failure to communicate and a sense of entitlement that is the problem. And Coach, if you were in a position at an SEC school, let's say as a defensive coordinator or a head coach today, how important would it be for you to have a general manager? I met Courtney Morgan, who's the GM at Alabama, back in the fall when he spoke to the Touchdown Club of Memphis. And he's been with Kalen DeBoer for a long time. And he said the second day he was there, he got a note. They said, Coach Saban wants to see you. And he's like, wow, okay. He just basically was offering his support, and probably kind of snickering, going, you have fun with those guys coming in here wanting pay raises when they hadn't done jack shit. But you just, how would you be handling it right now? Because it's, you've got kids, I've got them. I would improvise, adapt, and overcome, but I'd still have standards.
Yeah, I don't know. It'd be hard for me to answer that. The NIL part of it doesn't bother me. The portal bothers the hell out of me. And I think the portal is pouring gas on the money thing. And you say, well, what the hell's the portal got to do with the money thing? That's where they go hunt the money. And if they'd cut out some of this transferring now, but guys, you take it to any court in America, and you want to know where our problems start, and they're starting in our court and our culture. They think everything should be decided with emotion and none of it with logic. And that's how you get these things. I understand that they're the ones that are bringing the people to the stadium and getting all the money from the fans and from the sponsor, all this kind of thing. Yeah, they ought to be paid. But once they make the decision to go to a school, have some kind of things about whether they've got to stay there. They can't just take off out the door, because that's where the bidding and the tampering and the competing for them and all this money thing gets out of hand. And like Franz said, don't blame the kids. Any 18, 19-year-old would make the same decisions, just about all of them. It's not their fault that we've put them in a candy store and you think they're not going to eat the candy.
Yeah.
So it's just crazy. But a lot of it did start with the coaches getting these crazy salaries too. And I think in some ways they're overpaid, but having done that for a living, it ain't easy. And it's long hours and all that. And, it's kind of like if you're a parent and you got a car and you bought it and you're gonna ride it and you drive it and you've been driving for 20 years, and now you got a kid who just turned 13. He wants to drive it. Well, why can't he drive the damn car? He's in the family too. He has to ride to church and ride to school also. Let him drive. No, he doesn't need to drive just because the adult drives.
Yeah.
And I think that's a silly analogy too, but I think there's too much of that in our society. And I think there's too much of it, obviously, in this mess we got called NIL.
I agree.
Well, here's the deal.
Franz, we got to.
Let me give one quick thing. You got 85 kids on scholarship, and if you gave all of them a $40,000 car, that's $3.4 million. Okay? Would Kirby Smart miss $3.4 million? No, but his kids are already getting the $40,000 car anyway.
Yeah.
So,
well, here's the thing. We're going to move on from NIL because I said we would try to be a sanctuary show where we would talk, but you can't help but talk a little about it. But I want to go back with both of y'all. Let's do some history right now. Big theme of this show is history, traditions, and heroes. I want to ask y'all, in your opinion, what has happened with the game of football? You go back 20 and 30 years ago, a defensive tackle, a really good one, gentlemen, could have 300 tackles in his career if he was a 4-year starter. Now, I mean, is there such a thing as a 4-year starter? If he has 120 over 4 years, is that changes in how offensive linemen can hold? Is it instead of the game like it used to coming right at you, it comes like this and spreads all over? I'll start with you, Coach, because
I think it's the second one you said for the most part. And I didn't know those stats were that glaringly different. But if defensive linemen's tackles have gone down over the years, then I think it's probably from playing less minutes in the game and rotating more, and kids only playing 3 years and leaving or whatever. But I think what you said, the game is not played 85% between the tackles anymore, and it used to be. And the game I'll bring up, and all of y'all would remember, when George Rogers and Herschel Walker squared off, when they were in college.
Oh, yeah.
And there were like 13 passes thrown in that game. And I watched the highlight on it one day, and even I'd forgotten how different it was. The quarterbacks were very average passers.
Yes.
And, Georgia had, I think they had, who's a great receiver they had that played with Herschel?
Lindsey Scott.
Lindsey Scott, yeah. And Blue was pretty good too, but hell, they didn't throw the ball much either. And
Vince Dooley wanted a quarterback with a great big mouth and no arms. You could put the football in his mouth and he could just run. Didn't need any arms, just could run the football.
Well, you know what? No, friends, along that line, and both of y'all, that 1980 Georgia-South Carolina game, Georgia won 13-9. I remember George Rogers had a fumble late in the game, but it wasn't his fault that they lost. They didn't win. He was out of Duluth, Georgia. I mean, I remember listening as a kid to South Carolina games with the voice of the Gamecocks. I believe his name was Bob Fulton. I could pick him up on a radio station listening to South Carolina. And when I was a kid, I used to write to these schools, sports information departments, and they would send me media guides and stickers. And I would read all about them, And I think about Jim Carlin and the Gamecocks, the man in black, Joe Morrison. Took them to the first ever 10-win season for South Carolina in 1984. And then when Spurrier was there, y'all did it 2011, 2012, and 2013. 3 straight years of 11 wins in a season. And I watched something on Saturdays Down South over the weekend. Y'all seen the one when they talked to Marcus? Coach, do you know Marcus Lattimore?
Oh, yeah. He was played for us.
I mean, what a good guy. And I just was like, so he went to Burns High School there in South Carolina. What a good person. I mean, he goes and talks about what happened to him and his story, man, it resonates, doesn't it?
Yeah, Marcus was a great young man. He's unfortunately, I don't know what's going on with him right now, but he's moved out to the West Coast, and I don't know. he didn't come back to be inducted in the South Carolina Hall of Fame the other day, and a lot of folks were worried about him. He just kind of lost touch with everybody.
Well, that's like Trey Mason. Remember him?
Yeah,
He played for Auburn. God, he's been through some very, very tough times in his life. And Coach, I just wonder if the physical beating that you take as a player, and I talked to Dr. Andrews last Monday on the phone for about 20 minutes. He's going to come on the show here in the next week or so. He's technically retired after the end of last season as the head doctor for Auburn, but Andrews Orthopedics still covers Auburn and Alabama and all. But man, it's his mind is just, he's still working. He's Andrews Sports Institute, but when you talk to him about what these players, I remember one time I had a trainer tell me he'd been at Auburn 26 years and he named one player who had not had some sort of big surgery in 26 years. Everybody, you get beat up. I mean, just different. I just don't think people understand what it does to your body. And I'm concerned that we better be careful. And I will say this, Dana Marquez, we know Dana, he's doing some stuff. I talk to him a lot. He's a good friend. They're doing so much now for player safety, the equipment, the helmets and everything. There's two ways you're going to get the point across about targeting with your head. My 96-year-old dad says, boy, I played with no damn face mask. I said, how many times did you break your nose, Dad? And he goes, hell, I don't know, 3 or 4, I think. And, they would just, do that. That's how they did it. But it taught you how to tackle right. And the second thing is the concussion prevention that they're putting in. They're retrofitting all these helmets. They're making the equipment better. Franz, you look at, say, the University of Florida, what they did with damn Gatorade. What an electrolyte. I mean, that changed a lot. I mean, tremendously how athletes play the games.
Well, I was when I was at Gainesville High School back in the 1960s, back back in the leather helmets and no face mask days and everything.
Those were the great days. Come on.
They were experimenting with Gatorade for us, and it worked. But we had some of the most nasty tasting drinks you've ever had.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is the stuff worked. And that's helped revolutionize the game. I was writing for the Wilmington Star News up in North Carolina when we had a kid named Billy Arnold who died of heat stroke on the field at Chapel Hill. Kid out of St. Christopher's in Richmond, Virginia, tremendous offensive guard prospect. And but I remember that we had a kid who died here at Florida back in, I guess it was 2000, maybe 2001, a kid who signed out of Lafayette, Louisiana. Gatorade has helped change that. We don't see the number of deaths or injuries from heat-related injuries anymore. But here's what we're seeing. We're seeing more knee injuries and more shoulder injuries. Steve Spurrier said it best. He said players are bigger, stronger, and faster than they've ever been. The field is the same size.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what's strange, Coach? When you were there all the years coaching, you saw players, a lot of players get injured. And it's fairly rare, but Marcus Lattimore, I think, did get back into the NFL briefly. Am I correct?
Yeah, he got drafted by the Niners, but
okay.
a lot later than he would have. Because, he had those 2 real terrible knee injuries. The first one, he got rolled up behind. It wasn't totally that bad. The year after I was gone, he got hit in the front of the knee, and it was ugly. But they were able to repair it pretty good. It was crazy. I think they said he didn't have anything cracked or broken, and I don't remember. It just like it only tore one ligament or something, but it was an unbelievable terrible injury that didn't have that bad of a surgery, and he was
Yeah.
able to come back. But he never was himself again. I think the Niners kept him for a couple of years just because of a great character and
Yeah.
good kid and everything. And it was just a good guy to have on that team. And he got tired of it, and he went ahead. I think it was 2 years, maybe 3.
Yeah.
Could have been just 1.
You
As
think
a freshman,
yeah.
I thought he was going to win the Heisman Trophy one day.
Oh my God.
Yeah, he was a grown man when he got there. He was really something.
And I think about just the injuries. There've been, Willis McGahee, everybody remembers him, Miami, Ohio State in 2002. Willis was he out of Immokalee? I think he was out of the muck, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
Yeah. Okay. So he got hurt. He came back, but I've duck hunted a lot over the years with a friend of mine who's an orthopedic surgeon, and I just, Tyler Ellis is my friend's Trip and Margaret Monger's son-in-law. He's been about a year and a half in at Oxford Orthopedic down in Oxford, Mississippi, and he works with Ole Miss's football team. And God, these injuries, when somebody Dr. Andrews, when I was talking to him the other night, I said, I always remember when you would come out on the field, he goes, yeah, it was pretty serious. I said, yeah, you said it. But man, when he would walk out on that field, it was. And I don't think, I've got a friend that puts in knee replacements and joint replacements. He said 85% of the recovery comes in the first 3 months, but that other 15 to 20, that's the first time you cut or whatever. And Coach, I think about, you coached a guy named Montravius Adams. I loved it on the pregame line. I go, Montravius Adams, 6'4", 305 pounds. He had no fat. He had no waist. He was a freak from Dooley County High School, Vienna, Georgia. What a stud. And I think back that these defensive tackles, this kid, Justice Terry, out of right there by Callaway Gardens, signed with Texas. That Georgia, Kirby's going crazy over that one. But yeah, injuries, you know the risk that you play when you do it, but man, thank God we've made the advancements that we've made in orthopedic surgery to get these guys back on their feet. Coach, when I think about football, and you're saying 60% fewer visits with college coaches.
Now that was just one high school coach made that comment, but
that's a major program that puts out a lot of guys to college. Can you imagine?
It was Burns High School where Marcus came from.
There you go. So now think about the schools that are not putting out those players. They may be seeing little to nothing from college coaches.
Yeah, I talked to my buddies down at the Citadel the other day, and 2 or 3 of those guys worked for me when I was there. And they said, Coach, you can't believe some of the high school kids that we have a shot at. And I said, well, it's not looking like it on the field. And they said, well, we're losing so many of them in the military cadre, the rat system.
Yeah.
But they were just saying, coming in as a Citadel, we're looking at 2 or 3 kids every year. We wouldn't have had a sniff 6-10 years ago. Now they don't have anywhere to go.
Wow.
And then it's nothing but that portal, and they take them out of the portal. Real quick, you brought up Dana a while ago. I've got to mention this. Dana is a mad scientist.
He is.
When I left Auburn in 2014, Dana was working on a blanket for the equestrian team put on underneath their saddles that would give less shock, which I didn't understand this. But one of the hardest things on those horses is it really hurts their back when they have to compete like that and everything, which makes sense. But he's working on a thing, and it comes from, he was putting this material in their pants, the football pants. It wasn't even like a paperback book.
Yeah.
And you could hit it with a dang hammer and it wouldn't hurt somebody. And I'm thinking, he said, now I'm working on using this for horse blanket for the equestrian team.
Yeah. And he really,
then he'd rail our, whats for pulling our shoes on without untying them and retying them.
Yeah.
He said, you're tearing the shoe up. They'll never support your feet the way they should. And we're like, dude, get out of here. We in a hurry. And we'd pull on our Under Armours, without untying them. He'd just drive him crazy.
Well, Franz, you remember when he's talking about Dana Marquez in the 2013 Iron Bowl, they're over there with the sewing machine on the sidelines in the Iron Bowl trying to get, remember Ladarius Owens, number 10 out of Jackson Olin High School in Birmingham. And they were trying to get his jersey sewed back because it takes like 15 or 20 minutes, they say, when you put a new jersey on somebody to get loose. And he goes, I got to be able to move my arms. And by the way, at the end of the kick six in that game in 2013, he high-fived my son Wilson, and his Under Armour glove came off in Wilson's hands, and he autographed it for him, and we still have that to this day. I go to Franz Beard from Alachua County, Florida, a 6'3", 203-pound junior pole vaulting champion.
Pole vaulting, oh gosh. It's funny that you bring that up because I saw the clips the other day from Pink Panther movie of Clouseau trying to pole vault the moat and get into the castle. That
was one of the funniest movies. We need more movies like that. And then
yes,
he goes, ah! He goes, does your dog bite? He goes, no. He goes, ah! He bites his hand off. He goes, I thought you said your dog didn't bite. He goes, it's not my dog.
Yeah.
God,
Here's
we
the
need
thing
Peter Sellers.
that is, gets to me. You got, watching the national championship game, Quinshon Judkins had cut off his pants to the point he's wearing a pair of shorts.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Now here's the thing: we have this Kevlar that is like a quarter of an inch thick that can stop a bullet.
That's what he was using.
And
blanket.
What you've got to have, we've got to do is first off, we got to make players wear their uniform again. You're not wearing shorts, you're wearing pants, and put pads in on the knees and these shock absorbing materials on the knees to help stop some of the knee injuries. And some, you get hit in the thigh. How many guys missed games this year because they took a helmet to the thigh, and you look and the guy's not wearing thigh pads.
That's where they're putting that Kevlar. That's where they're using that Kevlar. You can't even tell they've got it in there sometime. But Franz, the trainers didn't fight back on that knee pad thing, and I was shocked too. But they said that frankly, the knee pad thing was not doing anything. It wasn't helping much.
Yeah.
It's, other than catching something, getting kicked in the knee and bruised or something like that. But they said when you twist the knee or somebody rolls you up, the knee pad does no good.
No, it doesn't.
I think what happened, they started wearing the pants a little higher and a little higher and a little higher. And the referees got to where they said, look, this isn't our job to be policing that. Because they were telling kids they had to go change their pants before games and things, and the coaches were getting in an argument with them, and it just got to be unmanageable. And so they finally said, they went to the trainers and doctors and said, how important is this? And they said, it really isn't that important. That's where all that came from. And they don't enforce that, but you're right on that thigh pad and the hip pad and then that tailbone back there. It doesn't take but once. You get hit on that coccyx bone in the back of your rear end, and you'll put something on it at the next practice. I mean, but kids are hard-headed, and they think it's slowing them down. You're talking about a pound and a half of material. It ain't going to slow anybody down.
No, not that's. But Dad always thinks they're wearing shorts too, and
some of them are.
Yeah,
they're cut off, but
knee
most
gets
of them
hit.
are just.
It's tough, man. I mean, anytime you have a knee injury, and I know someone who just went to Andrews Orthopedic down in Gulf Breeze, Florida, for some medical consultation, and the person sent a video back and said, "I've never seen anything like it in my life. It's the greatest experience I've ever had in terms of being taken care of." And Dr. Benton Emblem, and they take care. Butch Thompson, Auburn's baseball coach, tells me when you're recruiting a kid, part of the deal was you would introduce them to Dr. Andrews and the Andrews orthopedic staff. And it's like, wow. And I think he said the ulna, the bone in your elbow is designed to throw at about 90 miles an hour. And you get above that, you're pushing you're pushing the limit way too much. Well, but guys, we're about to I've been texting Dana real quick, and he's getting a kick out of us talking about him. So I'll talk to him after the show. But he has mentored so many people that worked in his program.
Well, tell him I'm still pulling on my New Balance shoes without lacing them.
I'll let him know.
I don't care what he thinks. I'm gonna keep doing it.
I'll tell him. But the thing is, this is a cool discussion because talk about injuries, and people want to know about these pants that they're wearing. They don't have any knee pads. They do look like that they're shorts, and you get these deep thigh bruises. If you've ever had a hamstring pull, God forbid, a tear, I mean, it hurts so bad it'll make you throw up. It pops like cracking a knuckle or something like that. I think the takeaway for today, we'll wrap it up. And folks, you saw on here, Winter Timber Outdoors open every day of the week in Athens, Alabama, both in the Memphis market. They've found a location, it looks like, in the Memphis market. We'll be announcing that soon for Winter Timber Outdoors. And Hewlett and Dunn, open Monday through Saturday, folks. Get out there. Got a 50% off sale going on right now with Duck Head, Duck Camp. You talk about great looking stuff, some Filson, they got it all out there. But gentlemen, the takeaway from today is we need to have some guardrails and some structure. Would that be a fair thing to say so we can get this? Yeah.
Desperately.
Yeah.
I think they're going to make them employees within 2 years.
Yeah, I wish you could be, Coach, on some sort of a panel. I don't want a big chair. I want a round table with no chairs and get in there and take care of business. But thank you both so much for sharing your Monday with us. Franz Beard, go Gators. I know you're happy about that one. So long way to go. But, hey, man, we'll do this again tomorrow morning. Thanks, everybody. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. We're the most blessed people in the history of the world. Every day, just remember, if you want to get back on your feet, get off of your ass. Great times ahead. We'll see you tomorrow.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shop's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal and the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.